to You're Not the Only One, the podcast or videocast or whatever we're calling it, for business owners who feel like they're on their own and just want a helping hand, want to know that they're not on their own, and to give them some help and some tips where we can. So I'm Gill, my business is CherryAid Marketing, and I'm a marketing strategist. So I help businesses figure out what marketing they're going to do so that they're not wasting their time posting here, there, and everywhere. It's structured, it means they get a plan, and the marketing that they're going to do is going to be worthwhile, basically. So today we're talking about design, because design is in a lot of what we do now on social media. It's not just a case of having a logo anymore. So the topic I've chosen is you're not the only one that has a brand that doesn't feel like you, and why your logo isn't just a pretty picture. So my guest today is Dave Bradburn from Opus Creative Design. He's a graphic designer who is very experienced in the field. He's been doing it for quite some time, and he comes up with lots of lovely designs, helps people's brands evolve. I work with him on brand strategy, and yeah, it's just lovely to have him along. So would you like to introduce yourself, Dave?
Yep, morning. Yeah, he's very experienced. That's code for old, basically, isn't it? There.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
Fine.
Experience.
Well, there is a fair bit of experience and a few years rocked up. So, yeah, my background, I've worked as a graphic designer for, my whole career, really. I went to university and did graphic design and typography there, and then worked for various agencies around the northwest of England. After that, 9-10 years, and then set my own business up. 18 years or so ago now, and did a lot of freelancing for established agencies initially and everything, and then gradually I've worked with my own client base. But really that whole thing is just about helping people to communicate whatever it is that they're trying to achieve, whatever objective they're working to. It's setting the visual side of things really to support that and to support the messages that they're getting out, and really to help get them noticed and get that communication going.
Okay. So I thought we'd have a chat today about trends that we're seeing, and maybe some tools that you love that you could share that might help business owners that might not necessarily have budget for graphic design. So I know, like, a tool I use a lot is Canva. As a graphic designer, I'm sure you're not a lover of it, but I think it does have a place.
Yeah, that's exactly how I'd say it. It has a place in it. It's not something I have used a great deal because I tend to mainly use the Adobe packages, so InDesign, Photoshop, Illustrator, but have occasionally used Canva to convert something I've designed on one of those Adobe packages into a template that a client can use or something themselves. And yeah, it is one where it's unrealistic to think that everyone would be learning those more advanced packages, or are you able to get their heads around them really for the amount that they would use them. So Canva has that space to allow people to actually create, might be social media graphics or something typically that can quickly put together, can do it very, very speedily on the spot in a way that you couldn't do in that sort of turnaround time if it was being done by commissioning someone to do it. So yeah, it has that space to do that, and I think it helps. It works at its best when there's some guidance, some kind of branding set up, really, some kind of brand guidelines or whatever that you're working within, so that you're not doing it completely from scratch. But yeah, it and there's a few other things. I think Adobe Express, I think, is another one, isn't it? That does a similar sort of thing that allow people to use it.
It's a bit clunky.
I've never used it, so I've never had.
It's not as good as Canva.
Yeah.
It's it's not as intuitive as Canva is. But yeah, I've tried both. Yeah. When you were talking about brand guidelines, then I know that's something that you always supply when you've created a brand. What key things ought to be in there for businesses
I think
so that they're so from my point of view, from a marketing point of view, I would say they need to have it so that it's consistent across the business and what people are using is consistent. But what sort of things would you say would need to be in there?
You may well have encountered them as well. The brand guidelines books for huge corporations can be hundreds and hundreds of pages long, and go attempt to go into every conceivable possible application that you'd have for everything, and guaranteed that they don't cover everything. There's always some project that requires something that doesn't quite fall in there. But really, for a small business, it's just having a document there that gives reference to the colours that you use, so you can have that consistency of the colours that you use, and that might be 3 to 6 or maybe a few more colours that you have within that thing, and documents the colour references for RGB, for on web for CMYK, which is print values, but just so that all those colours are consistent all the time. It'll also have something in about the fonts that should be used, so the main ones that are used and perhaps some alternatives for if those ones aren't available. Probably have a little bit about what logos, what versions of the logo are available, and how it should be applied, and maybe some stuff about what not to do with it. But that really is, they're the basic things with it. You may go into things like tone of voice of copy as well, or how certain things are written as well, to be consistent. But it's really about nailing everything down so that it's consistent.
Okay, that's good. It's good to have. I think it stops people from running away with what they want to do.
Well, from themselves, but also it allows, if you're using different suppliers at different times, maybe you've got a graphic designer, you've got a web company, there might be some printers, maybe someone doing social media graphics for you at different times. There's a document there that everyone can refer to, and that they know that those basic things are in place for.
Yeah, I know when I worked with some of the major retailers, we'd have to design the labels that went on packaging, but they'd give us their packaging guidelines, and we then had to apply it to their packaging or our packaging for them effectively. So yeah, it was really useful, but very strict.
Yeah, well, something like one that I'm not someone who does a great deal of packaging and don't enjoy it particularly either, but on something like that, it does.
Why not?
Very clever, very closely. Why don't I enjoy it? Well, partly I think I've not done it a great deal, so it's not the direction where my experience is. But
most of the time you're just given guidelines and you just have to create it. So.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So is there a particular tool that you absolutely love using and wouldn't be without?
Well, I guess well, on the process, I mean, for one thing, there's a pencil at the very beginning of most of it that that you're sketching out some initial ideas, because that's usually the best way of getting those ideas down. If you end up relying on computers too much, it tends to steer ideas more in a direction, rather than allowing those ideas to be the first thing, and the creativity to come in. But on a day-to-day basis, it is those Adobe packages that I use. It's InDesign, Photoshop, Illustrator are the big three really that come in almost on a daily basis, I would say. Work with those.
Brilliant. Okay. So if I put myself in the shoes of a business owner and they are trying to create a logo and obviously aren't able to work with somebody as amazing as you currently, if they're stuck, if they've got some kind of creative block, how would you suggest they get around that? What process could they go through?
If they're doing it themselves, it's a challenge, to be fair. For a logo is almost one of the harder things to do, really. It's a bit like, say, if copywriting, often copywriters will say that writing a very short sentence is harder than writing a paragraph. It's the same with a logo in a way. You're trying to get everything into that logo with and really keep it as simple as possible. But that is one of the things. Keep it simple. Don't try, to do too much in it. Even back at uni, I remember being told sort of just have one idea in a logo. Don't If you've got two great ideas for it, choose one rather than trying to combine them, and have that simplicity. But really, if you're stuck for ideas, sometimes it's look around. What's out there? What are other people in the sector doing? What else in other sectors? Have you seen any logos that you like in completely unrelated businesses? Have you seen things that you don't like? That can be just as important as well. So look around at what is out there, and maybe Google on what it might be for logos in your sector or whatever. There'll be some little thing, and it's not about copying those ones. Absolutely, you shouldn't be doing that. But there may be something that you see that just triggers an idea that leads on to another idea, and it sort of gets your thoughts rolling on it. Really,
Okay.
going sometimes on thesaurus .com or something like that is useful as well, because you've got an idea of what you're wanting it to be conveying, but just putting those different words in what words that churns out and things as alternatives can just shift your way of thinking on it as well, and maybe trigger some ideas for the visual side from there as well.
Okay. I want to touch about AI.
Yeah.
Because I'm a ChatGPT fan. And it will occasionally say, would you like me to create an image for you that goes with that? Would you like me to create this for you? And you're like, well, go on then. But what it normally comes out with isn't that great. How do you feel about AI in design?
I think it's a tool, really. And over the years I've worked in this, there's been different tools have come in. I came into graphic design just after the point that sort of computers had come in, really, or at least at the point that they'd become prevalent in the industry, and the sort of paste up way of doing it before had gone. And that was really just another tool that had to be learnt and had to be adapted to and worked around. And there's a lot of fear about AI that it'll take all the jobs away, and over time maybe there'll be some see how things evolve. But I think really it's going to affect the low end of the market first, that might have otherwise been crowdsourced at the moment. But at the moment, it's not going to really challenge the higher end of it, where that creativity is important. But we can use it. There's in Photoshop and Illustrator have sort of started introducing some aspects of AI, and that might be for just sort of, if you've got a photo and you just need the sky to be an inch higher on it or something like that, previously you'd have had to clone that in and do that manually, and now the AI will expand that image for you. Generally that'll work okay. It's a tool to use at that level. If you are relying on it to produce the whole thing, I think the challenge is that AI is going to take the information from everything else that's out there and sort of form its ideas from there. So it's never going to produce something new. It's just going to produce things based on what it sees around, really, already. There's room to use that at times, and there's sometimes, again, that might be a thing that you put some ideas through ChatGPT and it might generate some things that you then think, oh, hang on, I can take this in a different direction from there and develop my own idea from it. There are some technical things. If it produces, I don't think it produces vector graphics, so you're going to be stuck with that if you were doing a logo. I think there's some copyright issues and things of whether you actually own that logo. That's a different aspect of it. But yeah, I think it's just something that within any AI, I think we have to embrace it and see how we can use it, rather than certainly not bury our heads in the sand and pretend that it doesn't exist, because that's not going to help.
I think if you don't use it, you're going to get left behind.
Yeah. So there's no point pretending it isn't there. But I think we have to be realistic about where the challenge is, and realistic about what it can and can't do. If it, concentrate on the areas that really it can't do, but you can maybe use it to enhance what you're able to do.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that you've got little tools within Photoshop and Illustrator now that it will those things that used to take you hours to
Yeah,
cut out
yeah.
something can now be done pretty quickly. So
Yeah,
that's good.
it's
I
interesting.
think,
The cutouts and things it can do quite well. What it can't do, it's okay for social media and for online stuff, but not
yeah,
so good for the resolution you need for print.
yeah, of course,
That
yeah,
may improve over time, and
yeah,
undoubtedly it will. Also, it's not good at rendering complete pictures at the moment. It tends to muck up things like fine details, like fingers and things that it'll generate someone with 6 fingers or something
yes, I've
like
seen
that,
that.
or
Two hands.
or little bits of text and things like that that are in a
Yeah,
picture that it won't do. That will improve over time, undoubtedly.
yeah, yeah,
But at the moment, you've got to be wary of it, really.
yeah, yeah. I think so. And make sure you're checking what's on there.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So we collaborate and do brand strategy together. And one of the things I talk about is um, having that strategy in place first before you start going down
Yeah.
the design route, so that you know who you want to reach and who your audience is, so that when it comes to working with someone like yourself, you're clear that actually that logo or that brand and those colors are going to work with the website you're going to be creating,
Yeah.
or and reaching the people you want to reach. And say you want to reach professional services, for example, that you're going to be taken seriously. You're not,
Yeah.
a jokey brand, for example. And I think that's quite often overlooked. I think people just go, I want a logo.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
it is. If that full strategy is in place first, it makes my job or any other graphic designer's job 100 times easier, really, because we've got that information to work on. If that's not there, we're probably taking a guess at what it is, really, and that guess may or may not be particularly accurate. But yeah, it should all really, if you're doing everything properly, it should all be built around that strategy first. What you're trying to achieve, what outcomes you want from it, who you're trying to reach, all that stuff. I don't need to tell you this, but yeah, all of that then helps whoever's sitting down to do the design. It They've got that information on which they can base what they're doing then. So it doesn't make any sense not to have it, really. There are times
no,
when things are done on more of a budget and everything's shrunken down really at that point, isn't it? But you still want to put that thought into it first, at least.
yeah.
Right.
And it's also things like tone of voice and how
Yeah,
you implement it once you've got it,
yeah,
and making
yeah,
sure that the way you're implementing it is gonna help you achieve those goals as well.
yeah, absolutely, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it's not just a logo, you see.
No, no. Well, a logo in isolation is not much anyway. Even the visual side of it goes way beyond just a logo of it. It is those we mentioned before, the color palette. What are those? What's the color psychology going into that, and what colors should be picked? It's not just about picking the colors that you happen to like.
Yeah,
Um, even the fonts and things have a role to play within suggesting the tone of things as well. So it all hangs together. Everything that's in there, it
yeah,
should be there for a purpose.
yeah. I when you were talking about color, then I was thinking about there's a museum in Dorset that's full of cars. I think it's the John Haynes Museum,
Right.
and they've got a room full of red cars, but on the wall they've got a thing that says why the color red is used in so many brands, and it talks all about it. And it's really quite interesting, the psychology of it, and how many brands that you see have red in their
Yeah.
branding.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And well, not just red.
yourself
You look
included.
across. Indeed, yeah. But you look across it for different sectors. You'll find blues tend to be about trust and loyalty, those sorts of things. So that's why things like banks, accountancy,
Okay.
financial services, and all that go that direction, because trust, loyalty, and sort of security are the important factors, really. You probably accountants don't want too much red as a general thing.
No, that's true.
The danger and excitement isn't something that you're particularly looking for in that one. But yeah, the
Yeah, you
difficulties
want
all
cool
have
and
different
calm,
meanings
don't you?
together.
I suppose.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So some questions for you, which I'm asking all my guests these. So, What's a challenge you or a client have faced recently, and how have you overcome it?
Relatively recent one was rebranding that we did, or certainly a new visual identity at least, for long established charity that I've worked with. This is one that called Sing for Pleasure. It's a charity that trains choral conductors and also holds singing events for choirs and that kind of thing. I've worked with them since university days, so sort of in some capacity, that goes back to mid to late 90s. And they've been established since the 60s though. There was a very sort of homemade sort of brand, for want of a better term, really, right at the beginning. That evolved a little bit as well over the time, and they had this bird sat on top of a heart logo that's the joy of singing and this kind of thing. They then introduced a new logo in sort of mid 90s, just before I got involved with it, which was okay at the time, but it had remained the same right through to, well, maybe a couple of years ago. I think it's 20 years now. And it got to a point really that wasn't doing it justice anymore. We needed to evolve that on. Really, the logo was quite awkward to use anyway from a practical point of view, but it really wasn't representing what the organisation was doing anymore. The challenge was, though, there's a lot of people who've been involved for a long, long time in it and had quite a lot of, affection for that, some of that, where that branding had originally come from, and didn't really want it to sort of change that much. So you're dealing with some people who are wanting to modernise, some people who are wanting to help that organisation, but others who are slightly clinging on to what's gone before for whatever reason, justified as well. But it was, it's a little challenge of how we do that. So we ended up bringing in some elements that were there before, but really changing them quite a lot. But we did end up actually doing quite a radical change for it, more radical than I anticipated we would manage to do. But that was in part due to some of the people involved in the organisation who were prepared to sort of advocate for it and push it through and see what that vision was. But sometimes there is a necessity to just evolve things, slightly just tweak things. Sometimes it is time to do quite a radical departure from what's gone before, really. But you've got to look at what has the potential and what will work for the future, really, and for what that organisation is trying to do now and for the foreseeable, rather than sort of hang on too much to the heritage of it, albeit that has an important role too.
Interesting. It's good that you were able to do something quite different with it in the end.
Well, it was. I was quite surprised in some respects with that. I thought it'd be a more conservative change, really. But I mean, we built it around crescendo marking, musical crescendo, and that kind of thing. And different elements came into it, which I won't bore into all of the details of that. But it's worked, and I think as we've been able to then roll it out and see it not just as an isolated logo, but actually see it applied into use and how I'd envisioned it would work, but it's not always easy for everyone to see that at that stage. And I think it's worked well, actually, and allowed to be used. Even the last logo, it was done in sort of mid 90s, as I say, so before social media was even a consideration, really before the websites were widely around, even at that stage. It's just coming in, but I don't, the charity organisation, it works a little bit slower than some other things. So it was time for that change, really.
Yeah. Okay. What's something you wish you'd known earlier?
I think some of it is just having self-belief, really, knowing that you're actually quite good at doing what you're doing, and not also having to sort of pretend that you fit in with that industry. Let's face it, there's a lot of cool people around in the agencies and design world and everything. I'm not sure whether they're all acting it as well, or whether they are, that's what their genuine character is. But I think I've got to a stage of giving up on trying to be cool now. It's like fit in, and be yourself, working for the clients that you work for, and you'll resonate with those people better, rather than trying to fit in and trying to conform to what you think is the thing that you've got to be, really. So just that self-belief, really, and confidence.
Yeah. I was talking to Verity from the Wide Valley Company. She's been a guest, and she was saying a lot of it has been down to the way you talk to yourself, almost. If you can flip that, which is very hard to do, but if you can, you start attracting different people, and you start showing that you are comfortable in who you are and your capabilities, really.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think also, if you're doubting yourself, why should anyone else have that confidence in you, really? It's hard to do.
It's very hard.
Many of us fall into that. So it's it's something that you can only work on over time, I think. But look at what you've achieved, and look at what you've done in that time.
It's that imposter syndrome thing, isn't it?
Yeah. No, I think it's Stephen Bartlett actually said about imposter syndrome, is the thing where actually, if you're not feeling that, you're not challenging yourself. So actually, the imposter syndrome is really a symptom of putting yourself in positions where you're going to grow and expand and learn.
Yeah.
And if you're not feeling any imposter syndrome, then maybe you're playing it too safe, really.
Maybe.
I've heard that. It's just one of those things that's resonated with me, that actually you think, actually embrace it in a way, and you know that you're doing something right if you're feeling that slightly.
Yeah, I'm reading his Diary of a CEO at the minute, and there's some very useful little hints and tips in there, particularly from a marketing perspective.
Right.
I'd recommend people give it a read, just from the point of view of it just makes you look at things slightly differently.
Yeah. Well, whatever source it comes from, sometimes you just hear some little snippet just at the right moment you need to hear it. And phrase, you can have heard it 10 times before, but phrased slightly differently. And that one way it's phrased just seems to land for you, doesn't it? So
yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's lots of podcasts and books and things that you can read, but if you're not in the right place to hear those things, they don't go in.
Yeah.
So yeah. What's working for you now that others could learn from?
I think, well, it's something I've done for a long time, but networking really has continually been something that's worked well for me, and something that I was really uncomfortable with. And I know you fell into the same.
Definitely.
Standing up and speaking, really, and being the person who'll come on a podcast or who'll be at an event and do a presentation or something like that. And it's just sharing your expertise, sharing your knowledge, that you've got that already. There's so many people, in both our fields, really. There's loads and loads of people doing what we do. There's certainly graphic designers. There's a lot of people out there. There's a lot who are very good. So often the differentiation is just the rapport that you've built and the personality that you manage to get across, things like that, when you're working with clients, how easy it is to work with people. But if you're hiding away and you don't show that, then you're going to struggle, aren't you? They're not going to know that you exist. So it's being prepared to stand up, be seen and speak, and that kind of thing, really. And just challenge yourself, really. If you're uncomfortable, you got to challenge it.
Yeah. It is really, really hard, especially if you're not comfortable doing that sort of thing. But you're right, it does work. And you do get
terrified of even standing up in front of a group of people that I knew quite well, really, and doing it. But then the more you do it, the more it becomes comfortable.
Yeah, and when you've done like a 20-minute slot or a 10 minutes or even longer, you do get a buzz from it. You do come away and go, wow, look what I just did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, your audience, rarely will your audience want you to fail.
No,
they are always on your side. They're wanting you to do well. They're really wanting you to do well from it.
Yeah. And I think, especially at networking groups, and particularly the one that you and I go to, you can tell that everybody's rooting everybody else on,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
wants to find them, help them find business, and wants them, wants you to succeed. Then no one's there to put you down or see you fail.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is that thing that really people are there to support. And generally it's supportive, so just going and doing that stuff works.
Yeah, it's just hard when you first start.
Yeah, it is. And I think, though, an awful lot of people in that audience will remember being there themselves as well at some point, even though they seem extremely polished now, and that think that they've always been able to do it. No, they remember being there and things, and it's just things that they've learned.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so what's something that you think, or you have thought, am I the only one that?
Yeah, I think sometimes you see discussions, say on social media and things like that, where within the design community, I'll see discussions where people are sort of criticising clients and things for the way that they are, and for they've not given a good brief, or they've not made the right decisions. I do think, am I the only one here that thinks, actually, no, it's our job to guide them as well through that. Graphic design isn't just about producing a design, it's about all the other stuff. It's about listening to the people you're working with, understanding what they do, asking the right questions. If that information isn't forthcoming initially, then you've got to dig that out and ask those questions to get there, and listen properly to the responses, and read between the lines and all that kind of thing. And then when it comes to making decisions, you've got to explain your thinking, you've got to guide that decision well, allow them to make the decision, but guide them in it and inform them, so that at least it is an informed and educated decision, rather than just gone on a whim or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's these things where, I don't know, it's a kind of, I don't know if it's an entitlement, if it's a kind of misunderstanding of what the job is, but it's almost people who sometimes wanting these shortcuts, and half the job to be done for them, so that they can just do the pretty bit. And no, there's so much more depth that has to be done to it if it's being done properly.
Yeah. That I talk about working in partnership with clients, because the more I know, the more I understand their business, the better job I can do, basically. And I'm sure it's the same for you.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I've come across people who've worked with agencies, and I think there's so it's a two-sided thing, really. I think there's a client probably feels like, well, I just want to hand it all over and I don't want to have to deal with it. But equally, if the agency aren't saying, well, we need your input and we need regular updates and we need to chat with you and find out what's going on, you need to include us, it's really hard to do a good job. And so that's why I sort of insist on regular updates. Yeah.
If they won't have that initial conversation with me, that's a bit of a red flag, really, because
definitely,
I can't do my best work if they're not going to allow me in first. But they can get to a point where actually we've worked together well enough that I understand this business well enough to know how you work, and a certain amount of it then at least can be done. Really, just leave me to it and I'll crack on, and I know what you'll want. But that takes time to establish, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. That's like an ongoing sort of retainer client, isn't it, that you've worked with lots, that you know
going over time over years. But that working in partnership thing is where often the best results are. I think agencies are slightly different than, if you've got 20, 30, 40 people in an agency, then that's and maybe if you're working with a very big company as well, where it's it changes that relationship, and you've got to find ways of making that still work at that point. If you one or two people in a business, and you're working with a company where you're dealing directly with whether it's the business owner or a senior member of the team and director or whoever, then you can establish that direct connection perhaps more easily than when it becomes bigger businesses. But that's the advantage of working with those smaller businesses, really, then, isn't it? That as smaller suppliers, that we get that full connection, really, and the direct communication that isn't going through layers of different team members.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. That's true. So it probably gets a bit dissipated. Is that the right word?
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah.
Dissipated, diluted down as well.
That's what I mean. Diluted.
I remember it working in agencies in the past where actually we had very little conversation directly with clients. It was all fed through account handlers and sales, that kind of thing. And it did mean that sometimes, there was this sort of barrier in the communication, really, because of that. Sometimes it worked well, and it just depended on the circumstances. Yeah, you've got to find that system that works for the size of business, I think, really, and work out how best to do that.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we're coming to the end of our chat. But how can people connect with you? How can they find you? Website address and things.
Company is Opus Creative Design. It's www.opuscreative.co.uk. Facebook and he's also on there, so there's Opus Creative Design on Facebook as well. That's the main social media one I use. And LinkedIn as well is it's Dave Bradburn on LinkedIn as my personal one. So yeah, they're generally the best ways to connect.
Okay, brilliant. Well, I hope everybody's enjoyed listening and watching this. And if you want more conversations, you want to learn a little bit more, then please do subscribe to the channel and get updates for when new videos are out. We're doing one a month, so it's not too heavy. And I will put all our contact details in the description so that you can click on links and connect directly with us. So thank you ever so much, Dave.
Thank you. It's been enjoyable. So yeah.
Good. All right. Take care.
Okay. Bye.